Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here sitting with my friend Radu Sion, who is the founder and CEO of Private Machines. Well, welcome.
Thank you. It's great being here. Thanks for having us.
Looking forward to hearing about Private Machines and about all the different work you're doing. Start with maybe a little bit about yourself. You're a professor at Stony Brook.
Yes, I am.
A lot of cool things. Tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, I've been doing cybersec for almost 20 years now. I'm a tenured professor in Stony Brook. I'm also leading the National Security Institute. We are a group of super cool people that are building very interesting security systems. We are the highest funded research group last year in the country.
Wow.
By the National Science Foundation.
Wow.
And so it's a very exciting thing on the academic front. I'm on leave on my academic life. I've started Private Machines in 2011. We are a startup. We're building lots of very cool tech. We've been funded heavily by the government, by Homeland Security, by the Navy, by the Air Force. And we built tech that they needed at that point. We've been in stealth with a lot of this. And now we're coming out of stealth with very interesting technology. We've been out of stealth for a couple of years with some other technology that we're already selling to some of the large banks.
That's good.
And what we do in general is basically we're protecting your assets, we're protecting your tech in environments you don't control. Whether that means a data center or a battlefield, whether it means a cloud, whether it means basically any environment where you outsource things, where you place your assets, and you have concerns of integrity, of confidentiality, of control, of
both
access.
Physical and virtual.
Both physical and virtual. Excellent point, yes. So we're doing this for things like storage, large-scale storage integration for large corporations. We work with some of the largest banks in the world. And we're enabling them to do so securely and also very, very efficiently. We combine these two things. Very often you get security that is coming at the cost. It's coming at this cost of, well, yeah, you have stuff that's encrypted, but it's 10 times slower, so you don't want to use it. Well, we are not doing that. We're giving you stuff that's encrypted, it's protected with full integrity, and it's actually 20% faster than if you were to have it on-prem.
Wow.
So it's very important to us that the delivery of what we do is fully transparent, and it's also, from a client point of view, it's actually making their life easier. Security very often gets in the way. We don't do that. So we believe in security that takes a step back. It offers transparent enforcement, and it gives you high performance on-prem. I think that's very important. And as researchers, I know this from my academic life, we very often kind of take this cybersec approach where we say, well, security is the most important thing, and everybody else has to bow down to our security hats. And I still kind of have a security core, so I believe in that. But I think ultimately the customer doesn't believe in that. The customer believes in functionality, believes in things working seamless. So, for example, in one of our platforms that integrates storage across all the clouds and all your stuff on-prem, we deliver this securely, but everything is baked in and fully transparent. And your performance on-prem and what your clients see is actually higher than if you were to not use our platforms, use the clouds directly, or use even your on-prem stuff. Okay, so basically we believe in this, the customer cares about performance, and we are aware of that. So that's an important part of what we do. It's not only cyber.
That makes sense. Now, I remember I had an old set-top boxes years ago that you could take the top off, you could tamper with the thing, and then they said, well, that's a terrible idea.
Yep.
How does that relate to what you're doing, this idea of tampering with equipment? That's one of the things you guys solve,
And this is a great lead-in, yes. So one of the things we do is we built the world's first tamper-proof server. This is a FIPS 140-2 level 4 certified, and certification is still in progress. We have 12 out of 13 certs that we need. Certified server. And what this gives you is an HSM on steroids within which you can run your code, your operating system, a full VM, a full x86 COTS software, and place this in an environment you don't trust, such as a cloud, a data center, a colo in Jersey. And the guarantees you get here are twofold. You get both logical and physical protection. So the physical protection is the stuff you can immediately think about. Is this thing notices that somebody tries to tamper with it physically, tries to laser through it, tries to drill through it, tries to x-ray it or do chemical attacks on it and so on. And the logical attacks have to do with, well, does somebody want to tamper with your software stack? For example, in the SWIFT, you may be familiar with the SWIFT payment network attacks that they had last year and the year before, and they keep having. The problem there was, well, somebody accessed some, I don't want to name names of countries because I lose track of them, but in remote countries, in faraway countries, where with physical access to the server, you can compromise the software and submit fraudulent transactions. And so that's the type of problem we're solving with Enforcer. And now, of course, this has applications in DoD scenarios, and we're working with several agencies where they place this in data centers to protect themselves and have interagency sharing test beds that use tamper-proof or tamper-proof Enforcer servers. So basically, the way you would, to get back to your set-top box question, you build something that behaves like a vanilla server that you like, something that's easy to use, that could run COTS software, that could do stuff that you want it to do. It's not something weird where you have to write Java code and run a virtual machine within something else. And you don't have to have custom tools. You run your COTS on it. You run the software you need to run, but the machine itself is designed to be tampered. It's drop-in replacement for a vanilla server, okay? Imagine a rackable server. But that being said, it is designed for level 4 tamper-proof. And what that means is physically tamper-proof. And so if somebody tries to open it, it zeroizes, it self-destructs what's inside. It does much more than that, but that's the simpler way of doing it. And then on the software side, it monitors what runs inside. It can attest. You can remotely talk to it and say, hey, what has been loaded? I haven't spoken to you in 3 days. What's your software stack like? What have you been loading so far? What are you running? And all this stuff, the beauty is that all this stuff works with COTS software. So you don't have to redesign your app. You don't have to recompile your stuff. You basically run, for example, a virtual machine if this runs in a data center. Or you run your Oracle database inside it. But now you can remotely talk to it and say, hey, do you get full confidentiality for this? And anybody tampered with you? Is the software stack attested? Can you attest that from the hardware to the software, all the way, all the layers, can you attest this entire chain? So this is one of the techs we built that you hinted at, which is Enforcer. So this is what Enforcer gives you, the ability to place yourself in environments you don't control and offer a very high level of certified security on top of that.
You mentioned cloud. I would think cloud providers would be all over this.
It's great you mentioned that. So there's a number of ongoing things that I can't discuss, but I can tell you that we are releasing one service. It's called CipherCluster. You go to CipherCluster.com, you can access this. And what the service gives you is it allows you to run full Kubernetes, full Apache Spark analytics in the cloud with full privacy, with guarantees that even the NSA walking up to the data center can't access your data. And that's not
what it's a high rent district in cloud. Basically.
It is a high rent district in the cloud. And so now if you're a hedge fund manager, if you're a bank that wants to rent, you push a button, you allocate 10,000 containers, and you start running a cluster of data analytics for 2 hours. And you have the guarantee, because of the certification, because of the tamper-proof behavior of this, that nobody can tamper with your data, nobody can get access to it, and any compromise in the cloud doesn't touch you. So this is what where this fits in the cloud scenario. So again, and this is a service that we offer. There's other things ongoing that I can't talk about right now, but stay tuned at the theater near you.
Now, in addition to the tamper-proof focus, you guys have had very special focus on infrastructure, particularly storage as a service and so on, both from a security and a performance and reliability perspective. Tell us about that. Those are adjacent products that you build. Tell us about that.
So the overall story is the same, right? So the story being that you want to empower the customer to benefit of things like cloud. And cloud comes with immediate ROI. You have tangible reasons why you want to do things like cloud, right? And in the storage space, the main problem that lots of banks and lots of large enterprises are facing is a large footprint. You have a very large footprint on-prem that you need right now because you need the high performance. You need the 100 gigabit into that volume that gives you high transaction rates on your client side. And so now you keep large arrays, SAN, NAS arrays, large object storage deployments. We're talking hundreds of petabytes.
A lot of heat, a lot of energy, a lot of
heat,
space.
energy, space. Most importantly, people. Most importantly, cost from the vendors, licensing, all that good stuff. And so I know of instances of banks we work with where the budget for storage alone exceeds hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a lot of money just for storage. Forget about anything else. And so now what we empower, one of our goals of this platform that we're talking about right now, it's called actually CipherFabric. What CipherFabric empowers you to do is to get rid of 98% of this on-prem footprint and put all your stuff in the cloud. And so now the problem that you're facing now is saying, oh wait, great, I get immediate ROI, but I have some challenges. I have security challenges, and I have efficiency challenges, performance.
Compliance.
And of course, and then compliance is part of the cyber. So now the question is, well, how do I deal with these? And that's exactly what we do, right? So what we enable you to do is to get the performance that you would normally get from on-prem deployments by using actually cloud storage. That's number one. And number two, everything is fully protected and with a number of policies that you can enforce, and you can add arbitrary policy, you can add on this across multi-continent deployment. So in one deployment right now we have 4 continents across 7 or 8 sites, and on the back end there's about 200 petabytes of data. And this is a large Fortune 100 company, and basically what's happening there is they took their entire storage and they're slowly migrating it to the cloud. And they're also being able to change all the stuff on the back end. So what another thing that CipherFabric enables you to do is get rid of lock-in, vendor lock-in. Because another problem that vendors have on-prem is you get locked into one solution, and that lock-in hurts for a long time. It's not a 1 or 2 year thing. We're talking decades. You're stuck for decades. And the reason being, number one, APIs and clients and things like that. So you start writing apps on-prem, and these apps use that vendor that you bought into. And so now changing these apps makes it more and more difficult to move away from that vendor. And so another thing that CipherFabric does, and other products of ours too, but Fabric in particular, is enables you to be fully vendor agnostic. So you could integrate 25 plus vendors on the back end.
So it's middleware between the apps and the underlying storage.
Exactly. That's one way, very good way of looking at it. Exactly. And so now the benefit is that you can swap in and out. In fact, we have another large financial we work with. They're swapping in an existing vendor to a completely new vendor, and it's literally a weeks-long process. None of the apps change. None of the clients have they don't need to know this. And the entire infrastructure works flawlessly. And at the same time, they're also enabling a cloud. So as a quick summary of this, and maybe I didn't do a very good summary of this initially,
extremely good.
Is that what CipherFabric does is enables you to access all the clouds securely in a unified manner, to a unified interface, and at the same time also your on-prem storage, and be able to migrate between them very efficiently without saddling the clients with having to know about security policies, about enforcement of any type of active credentials or any provisioning, any of that stuff. The clients just show up with something like Active Directory's credentials, and they start consuming storage anywhere they are in the world, and everything underneath is fully integrated. So this is what Fabric does. And one of the beauty of this is that now you're not vendor locked in. You escape vendor lock-in immediately on day one. You get huge ROI because you can migrate stuff into the cloud immediately, and all that stuff is fully transparent to your clients. You get standard interfaces. We're normalizing to things like S3, iSCSI, normal standard stuff that people use today all the time. So you already have millions of clients written for that. All your apps already have to work with things like that. And so now whether you use clouds that have an S3 API or not, or whether they offer volumes or not, all that stuff happens transparently to you because you don't have to worry about the APIs the clouds give you. So you unify the APIs, you unify security, and you allow easy migration. So you get access to that immediate ROI across the platform.
I bet the SAN vendors are wondering where this is going. That seems like an interesting kind of complement to what they do. Makes them more generally useful.
Of course. But again, usually SAN deployments that you see today don't easily allow you to use cloud. And if they do, it's usually one cloud with one solution, a very targeted situation. So in what Fabric does is we're saying, well, you could use everybody and anybody and still give things like very object useful. And block on-prem with high security and very high performance. So another thing, a part of CipherFabric is a product called CipherDisk. This is a module of CipherFabric. And what CipherDisk gives you is it gives you the ability to use hundreds of petabytes in the cloud and give on-prem performance that you would normally get from on-prem deployments. So you have 100 gigabit per volume, for example, something like that, into volume as speed. That's a very high speed for volumes. So you get block storage on-prem, but all your storage is actually in the cloud, and your footprint on-prem is almost non-existent. So now you can have clients on-prem that say, I want 2 petabyte volume, and normally that would cost 2 petabytes worth of disks on-prem by a SAN NAS vendor or any storage vendor, and I have to pay for that for the duration. What we do is we say, well, we have this thing called sparse volumes, and we also store this whole thing in the cloud. So you have a 2 petabyte volume that actually consumes only a couple of terabytes. That's you only pay for a couple of terabytes, number one, while you think you have a 2 petabyte volume. Number two, you have very high performance. So your client on-prem thinks that they actually have a disk that's local. And number three, all your stuff is actually in the cloud. So you pay a fraction of what you would pay on-prem. Yeah. So yes, I think SAN vendors may be interested in what we do. Maybe worried, maybe interested.
I wouldn't think worried.
No.
I think it's an enabling
it is
function.
an enabling, yes.
Because we all know where it's headed. Everything's going virtual. So.
Yes.
Hey, you're an expert. You've been at this a long time.
Oh, my God.
Let's steer you towards the future a little bit.
Let's do it, yes.
Where do you think things are going? Well, let's start architecture first, then I want to talk threat. Is it reasonable to assume that all winds blow toward the cloud? Is that just in a highly simplified view? Is that the way enterprise is moving?
I would think so, but I think if we go a little beyond this oversimplification, the things are not as clear for several things. So I think there's always going to be a world of hybrids out there, and the vast majority of things are going to be cloudable, and people are going to write more and more. Just because
hybrid
even on
meaning you leave some things behind
you leave some
in an enterprise.
things on-prem. Yes, you have a hybrid setup. We still run a cloud on-prem. A lot of, as you may know, a lot of the Fortune 100s are not in the cloud. There's a lot of noise around going to the cloud, but they're keeping a lot of assets on-prem. And even when they do move to the cloud, it's usually things that are not essential assets. So we know of at least significant major banks that are not in the cloud yet. Despite what you see articles that they're using the cloud, and cloud has become such a vague term.
Well, let me ask a question. When we say cloud, how about this? Tell me if you agree with this. If we categorize networks as things that you, the enterprise, run yourself versus networks that someone else runs, can we say the trend is moving toward not running your own network? Like if you're a bank, can you do a network better than Amazon? I don't know. Or than Verizon. This old concept of you build a big perimeter, you hire a team, you put a firewall in place, and that's your network. That seems to be going like that perimeter concept. That's just going away.
I think what you get
is left with is workloads scattered around a distributed infrastructure.
You get a bunch of VPCs or VPNs or VP, whatever you want to call them, and all these things kind of aggregate. And the perimeter still exists, but it's more virtual. I agree.
It just worries me that home base concept is something that's not well policed. We all know that.
Yes, it's less
well policed. Perimeter is very poorly policed.
Yes.
So anything you leave there becomes low rent district because that's stuff you're protecting. So when we have hybrid, that assumes I'm keeping things behind. But what worries me is that what's left behind is not very well protected.
That's an excellent point. Another thing to consider is the cloud is more secure, I think, in general. They have more people, they're throwing more resources at the problem.
It's true.
They're also much larger target. Just yesterday, and so on Slashdot or on Slashdot, I think, a company is offering $500,000 for any 0 days that have to do with cloud. And on the darknet, as I'm sure some of our viewers know.
Is that Zimperium? Is that who's doing it?
Zerodium.
Zerodium.
Or something like
Zerodium,
that.
That's right.
Yes.
I saw that.
And so they're offering $500,000. But if you go elsewhere, you get millions of dollars for zero. If you get a 0 day in Amazon, it becomes a large target for millions of dollars. And there's 16 million. I don't want to name names, but one of the biggest well-known hypervisor, Plus OS, has over almost 20 million lines of code. And so at the industry average, where you get a few bugs per 1,000 lines of code, now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of bugs. Some of these will be vectors.
So that needs to be dealt with. But
right, but what I'm saying is there's a bigger target.
Whereas
if you have on-prem,
target.
all you have to deal with is the networking layer.
I understand.
And so I think there will be a world of hybrids, but I think the trend is exactly what
multi-cloud.
Multi-cloud
and
hybrids. Yes, it is very good for us. Yes.
Now, threat. What do you see? I mean, there's hyperbole, where we're headed to a big cyber war, and there's also understated views that maybe underestimate the significance of the problem. Where are you in that spectrum?
Well, I mean, there's many verticals where we could talk about. For example, in smart grid and power plants and so on. Again, there was this article this morning where there's this malware that starts targeting a bunch of these SCADA / firmware things. So depending on which vertical we talk about, let's just take vanilla enterprise verticals as opposed to very targeted things. I think there's also a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of companies that need to sell stuff. Right. So the marketing budgets are large and there's a lot of hyping. On the other hand, I think a lot of the large enterprises are seeing more than what you and me can see in terms of the millions of scans they get daily and what the vulnerabilities are. One thing that really concerns me, and I'm not sure if this is the perfect venue for that, is this trend, the global trend, especially in things like UK and now more recently in the US, to try to force backdoors into encryption, to make these, to bring this thing into the, we need to disable or have backdoors in encryption because we need to law enforcement driven mostly, and I think that's terribly misguided for so many reasons. We're not having time to discuss that, but that's one of the things that really concerns me, because once we have laws like that, for example, Australia has a law like that, the UK, once we have laws like that, we're losing business, we're losing ways of doing things securely, and that's to the detriment of all of us. And getting back to your initial question, I think some of the cyber war story now has become more popular because more people are becoming knowledgeable of the world, the IT world existing out there. But I think this has been going on for a long time. So the Russians have had groups of the Russian government has had almost official groups of thousands of people working on cyber. And now the DoD recently, the ARPA came out, I think 3-4 years ago, and it said offensive is acceptable. Right. They had a call on offensive. So this is coming more into the forefront, but this has been going on for decades on the back end, especially in the early days. I have a friend, I'm coming from Romania. It's a small country in Eastern Europe. We have electricity now in Romania and great computer science.
Very good computer scientists in Romania.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is true. It's one of the highest per capita computer scientists in the world.
Right.
And so in 1993 or 94, we were having a bunch of small VT100 terminals on a Unix server. And so here we were at 3 a.m. in the morning, and my friend, I'm not going to name names, was calling me and said, hey, let me show you what I have here. And what I'm seeing is a scrolling window of welcome to the Department of Defense. He had hacked into a few hundred print servers in the DoD here in Virginia. This was from Romania. The guy went to jail after. It's a longer story.
Terrible.
But what I'm saying is it was a script kiddie. So this type of stuff has been going on for a long time, since the 90s. I mean, we had IP in the 90s, and in Romania, Ukraine, all this good stuff.
Well, you come from the right place.
Oh my God,
That's
yes.
Wonderful. Are you enjoying running a company?
Yes, there's a lot of challenges, but I'm having a blast. So we're building super cool tech. And we're engaging with very interesting people. We meet with Fortune 500 CISOs and CEOs and CIOs, and we're having a lot of fun.
And you're the right personality, very upbeat, and a lot of excitement. You always have a ton of energy.
High all the time.
Well, keep doing the nice work that you're doing. As you make progress, come back and tell us about it.
Will do.
It was wonderful, as always, visiting with you today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Great.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.